Heather Perry. I am the PTO president for this year. We have a first grader at Winslow, and our oldest aged out of Winslow last year, so she's at Sherman this year. I'm going to go across my screen, so it might not be the same order, but Heather, would you like to go next?
Sure. I'm Heather Nesbitt. I have a third grader at Winslow and and then my youngest one will be in kindergarten this coming September.
Yay. Okay. Tabitha, you're up.
Hi, I'm the treasurer for the PTO at Winslow, and I have a second grader there, and I also have a fourth grader at Sherman.
And Mr. Pollard, you're up next.
Hello, welcome. Jeff Potter, the principal.
And Mr. McHugh.
Thank you. I'm Pat McHugh. I'm the Assistant Superintendent for Human Resources and Accountability in the district.
And Mrs. Exler.
Good evening. I'm Marianne Exler, and I'm the budget technician for the district.
Okay. And Dan, you're up next.
Hi, I'm Dan Henschel. I have a third grader at Winslow. I also have a child at Roth, and a child at Sherman, and a child at Vollmer, and a child at the high school, and one in college. So I have a large spectrum there. And I'm also your representative to the Budget Advisory Council.
I love Dan's introductions. And Mr. Rivers, you're up next.
Hello, Doug Rivers, a school board member. Welcome.
And I just want to see, I think we have a few others. I just have to scroll down here. Oh, I think we got everybody. Yep, it looks like we got everybody. So Pat and Marianne, if you want to get started with your presentation, it's all yours.
Thanks so much. And thank you all for giving Marianne and me a few minutes of your meeting tonight. I know you've got a lot to do. This is an annual event that we do at every Title I school every year. That's part of the requirement for obtaining our federal grants. So tonight I'm going to give you a quick overview of those grants and also what it means to Winslow to be a Title I school. We have 4 Title I schools, as you can see on the slide there, 4 elementary schools that receive Title I funding. And the title grants, what we call now the ESSA grants from the federal government, they're not a large portion of our budget. They're a little over $1 million. As you know, most of our funding comes from either state aid or from the local taxpayers. But we do get a little over $1 million from the federal government in the form of the title grants. And the largest of them by far is Title I. And the purpose of Title I, which dates back to the 1960s, was really the federal government's attempt to kind of level the playing field, to provide funding to less advantaged students and schools throughout the country, to make sure that they had the same resources and the same equitable services as the rest of their peers in other schools that may be more affluent. So Winslow has been a Title I school for a number of years. It continues to be a Title I school. We expect it to continue to be Title I into next year as well. And what does that mean? What that means is the main thing it means is that we are able to provide Winslow with an additional academic intervention teacher that Mr. Pollard can use either to support students with their reading or support students with their math. And what's nice about that position is that it's not just here to work with, our economically disadvantaged students. That person can work with all of our students, any student that has needs in those areas. So that's a great resource. The district also uses some of the money to provide Winslow with additional supplies and resources to buy materials and equipment and supplies and so forth in the building that non-Title I schools do not get. So that helps, especially with materials for some of our students who may have special needs and so forth, or their families may have some needs. And the third component, which is really the main reason for our meeting tonight, is that we set aside a certain amount of money for each Title I school for parents, namely for parents' involvement in their child's education. So any types of activities or special events or resources that are going to help support parents at Winslow in helping support their child's education. That's what we're about. And really, the parent group really is a partner with the school administration in helping to decide how to spend that money. So that's part of our obligation, is to ensure that parents in Title I schools understand what the grant is about, have some input into how we spend that money, and then make sure that they are able to decide how to spend the parent involvement funds. I did share with Mr. Pollard, and he's going to email this to you, a parent guide for Title I. If you've been to one of our presentations in past years, you've probably already seen this. It goes into, it's very easy to read. It goes into a lot more detail than I will tonight about the program, and also our board policy on parent involvement is included in that packet as well. But if at any time throughout the year you ever have any questions about Title I and how it impacts Winslow, feel free to reach out to me. I left my email address on the agenda. So Title I is the main federal grant program, as I said, and we use it in the ways that I described there on the slide. We also get Title II funds. Those go to all of our schools. They're not just limited to Title I schools. We use that. The largest chunk in Rush Henrietta of Title II goes toward our small class size initiative. So Winslow does benefit from that, as we pay for several teaching positions so that we have more teachers at the elementary school to keep our class sizes within our board guidelines, which, as you know, are the lowest in Monroe County. We have our target average size of 15 at the K-3 buildings, which we know has a big impact at that age on student success, having that more focused attention from the teacher. So, but we also use Title II for teacher professional development and training, for our mentoring programs, for new teachers and new administrators, and other ways that we help to build our staff skills so that they're up to date on all the latest teaching methods and so forth. The district does receive an amount of Title III funds. It's not a huge amount, but it is helpful because that money goes towards supporting our English language learners. As you know, that is a growing population here in Rush Henrietta, as it is in many places. And we use those funds to provide tutoring to help the kids catch up. We have summer programs in ENL as students enter the district to make sure that they're practicing their English language skills over the summer and that they're ready for school. And we also fund a liaison in our family services office who helps our ENL families and our refugee and new immigrant families as they come into the district to help them navigate all the services that are available in Rush Henrietta. And then we have Title IV. We get about $65,000 a year from Title IV, and that money can go into safety uses. It can go into uses having to do with technology, and it can go into supporting various innovative academic programs. So, for example, in recent years, we've used our safety money under Title IV to replace our defibrillators throughout the district and to buy additional equipment in our nurse's office so that the nurses have the most updated equipment to work with the students. So a lot of good uses for the federal money. And again, if you ever have any questions about any of that, or you want to make a suggestion for how we might spend next year's grant, because that's what we're working on now is the 22-23 grant, please feel free to reach out to myself or to Mary Ann. Any questions so far about the grants themselves and how we're spending them? Okay, so now I'm going to turn over to Mary Ann for the good stuff, which is your parent involvement money at Winslow and how much money you have or how much is left and how we can help you spend it.
Thanks, Pat. Okay, so Winslow, this year you were allocated $1,945 to use for your parent involvement activities. And so far, $1,278.61 of that was spent. That was spent earlier in the year for a large purchase of at-home reading books that could be sent home with students so they could practice their reading skills at home with their parents. That is a very common use of this money, is to buy items like that allow the kids to practice their reading or possibly math skills at home with their parents. But that's not the only kinds of things that you can do with these funds. We encourage you to come forward with ideas. Some of the things that we have seen in the past have involved ways to engage more parents in coming to PTO meetings. And we can help with getting people there by letting you order pizza to encourage them to come, helping pay for taxis or Uber rides to get people there, or even providing childcare services through our club care program, and then using some of these funds to pay for that staff as well. Some of the schools also are doing things like STEM nights and culture fairs, where they bring parents and students into the buildings when we can. Of course, we hope to get back to that next year, or they've come up with some creative ways to do those similar types of activities by sending items home and activities home with kids to do to experience the culture or practice their STEM skills. We've also seen schools create parent resources like a laminated card that helps parents know how to help their student with Chromebook issues, or a booklet that helps parents prepare for coming to a parent-teacher conference. So there's lots of different ways that you can go about using these funds to really help parents engage better with their child's school and be involved in helping their child learn. When you do come up with an idea, you really need to discuss it with Mr. Pollard, and then Mr. Pollard can put through a requisition to myself and Mr. McHugh. We review it, and as long as we can make it fit within the parameters of Title I, we approve it, and then we give the thumbs up to Mr. Pollard and his secretary to go ahead and begin the process of helping you make the purchases or facilitate the spending.
What's the remainder of their balance, Marianne?
$666.39.
All right, Mr. Powell, let's get going. You're usually pretty good about spending that money. So we got
ideas.
Awesome. We want to make sure you spend it all, because anything you don't spend by the end of the year, you lose. So we do want to make sure Winslow gets its full amount. So any questions about the parent involvement money, or how you can spend it? Mr. Rivers.
Just a quick question. In our board meeting last night, we were talking about safety. Do you think some of this money could be used for bringing someone to talk about maybe training parents how to help them understand the phone technology and try to give the parents tools that will better help them manage that component? Would this be something that could be used for something like that?
Absolutely. In fact, in the past years, we've had different times when schools have used the parent involvement money to pay for a guest speaker. You could even, sometimes speakers are expensive and you don't have a whole lot of money, you could even, do a joint meeting with, one of the other Title I schools and pool your funds. But yeah, that's an excellent, that's an excellent use of the parent engagement money.
Thank you.
Sure. Other questions or comments? All right. Well, we thank you for your attention. Again, Mr. Pollard will provide the guide for you, but if you have any questions or have any ideas, feel free to reach out. And we thank you for your attention tonight. I know you got to get on with your PTO meeting, so thank you.
And I put the link in the chat, but I'll also add it into my e-news just so people know it is in the chat right now. So
great.
All right. Thanks. Thank you guys very much.
Have a good evening.
Thank you. Are you done? No. All right. So it looks like it's just a few of us here tonight. We had a couple others on. So we'll just go through our committee updates, and Owen's playing video games. A couple of updates and probably be a short and sweet meeting. Before I forget, I saw her on briefly, but Karen Abergast was on. She represents the Rush Henrietta Music Parents, whatever that's called. And she had a couple of updates. She was trying to hop on to 3 of our K3 PTO meetings tonight before she has to take off and do her own thing. So real quick, she wanted to, the Rush Henrietta Music Parents Association, she wanted to just have a few announcements. They're doing a fundraiser next week at Blaze Pizza. It's on March 16th, so I believe that's Wednesday, from 4:30 to 7:30. I'll post the flyer in the PTO page. And Jeff, you may have included it in your e-news recently, but they will get any order placed online using the specific order code. 20% of the order will go toward the music program's summer grants, which they offer. I believe they offer to 100 kids, possibly 10 kids, I don't know. But the kids have to fill out a form and apply for this music grant, and basically they can take music lessons or summer camps or different programs over the summer if they get accepted, and the RAMPA gives you, I think, $100 toward that.
Heather, I think you can also show the flyer in person.
Yes. Yep, you're right. She said you can either show the flyer like on your phone or order online and use the code. The other thing was they're looking for volunteers this coming Friday and Saturday at Berger for the junior high all county music festival. And then they're also looking to fill board leadership positions for next year. So if anyone's interested, I will share that information and how to get a hold of that group on the Facebook page. Okay, so Mr. Rivers, did you want to start with a board update?
Yeah, I'll be quick. Just mainly we're in our board meeting, we were taking a look at our data for safety. You know, the reports that are being given are done exceptionally well, meaning they're including a lot of good information. And we're trying to look at, you know, how can we improve safety from a board standpoint? What resources do you need and things? And one of the topics that did come up was parental, who was it? David Barker, I can't remember who it was, but he brought up the idea that he's having parents Zoom when there's issues. And he's saying that it's pretty good because parents can get in touch with someone in the district and have a face-to-face. So that's the first thing. The other one is obviously phones are a big challenge, right? I don't know if you're at this level, but it's been a big challenge. So getting parents some education on how to be proactive to maybe use some of that technology so that they're aware, they know how to control things, and also be a participant in trying to avoid things that are happening at home or outside of school so it doesn't affect the kids in school. So I think that's one of the biggest takeaways is just right now we're trying to control, you know, the increase in reported violence, I guess is what we'll say. I'm not sure, Jeffrey, if there's a different word, it's kind of hard to say violence, but different levels of aggression or personal attacks that are happening so that the kids can stay safe. So for the most part, that's my report. Thank you.
Yeah, I think in Superintendent Wright addressed it in one of Z News too, that there has been, luckily here at Winslow, we haven't had any major issues with some of the more aggressive type of behavior, kids hitting each other, maybe kids hitting staff. But I think we are seeing an increase across the district in that. So it's just really trying to be proactive and work with kids and families. And I think the phones, luckily we don't have, I think that really starts to pick up more in 4th grade. Not that kids here don't have phones, but we just don't have the issues in school with them as much, knock on wood. But I do think even from a parent perspective, they're always a step ahead of us with that. So it's just trying to keep up. And I think you're right, Doug, with the just, knowing how to monitor tools like on Snapchat and stuff like that. It's just, it's a whole different world.
So Doug, you were saying in response to the Title I funds with the safety, you mean because of the behavioral issues going on in the district, you mean having somebody come in as a speaker to kind of discuss with the parents and how to, like you just said, how to kind of remedy that prior to it escalating it in school or whatever? Is that what you were talking about?
Yeah, on MPAC, I don't know if you were there, that Heather, on the day they had on MPAC, a Monroe County, I think it was a Monroe County sheriff, come in and do a presentation on how they're trying to monitor phone issues that create really violent issues. I mean, kids really, one person attacks another, does some harm, right? The challenge with that particular presentation is that individual is not a technology expert. So when I talk to Rachel Sherman, and I have lots of conversations about this as board members, just because we're really concerned. She's got young kids. I teach professionally. So, we see violence everywhere. And the question is, how can we be proactive? And what is one thing we can help provide, and what's missing? And so all of those three things come together. And what we see is that the technology that the kids have it's so powerful that it actually is causing problems. And so the idea, when her and I talked about this, the idea of having someone teach the parents how to monitor this stuff in a more effective way, so that they can try to maybe have some insight before the kids get to school. And then if there's issues with that and they're addressing it from there, then the parents are proactive and can call the school, maybe the nurse or maybe Jeff, and say, hey, Jane or John Doe is having a tough time today. There was something going on the webpage, and just to make you aware. And then you guys can keep an eye on those kinds of things, right? But from your level, you might not see a lot of that. However, the parents still could. My thinking is the parents, this is like the first step, right? You guys are the gatekeepers to all of this, right? So at this level, that's just the beginning where the parents can start to get involved and start to see that there could be value starting at 4th grade to monitor these things, right? It's that first step of education for them to be in the know. And as they're giving them the phones at this stage, they can start playing and figure it out, and then put some control apps in place and things like that. Because once they get to 4th, 5th, 6th grade, a lot of these kids have phones, and there's no parental controls, because the parents sometimes don't know about that stuff. And phone technology changes. So you really, when Rachel and I talked, we really thought about someone who understands the technology. For example, you go to Verizon, they do a session on how to use your iPhone or your, whatever phone you got, where you can get some good information out of it, right? Where you can put parental controls. Someone like that could be a good fit. Or is there someone in the building that is a really good technology person who can come in and do some guest speaking? Whoever that person is, maybe some of that money can be used to pay them to come in and do some good stuff with you on that. So that's where our thinking was. And proactive pieces, we're getting the parents earlier rather than later, right? And so that's kind of where we're thinking. Plus, if they're acting in with the kids in an earlier stage, we know that's when they act the most in, I use the word shared governance because I'm at the college level, but sharing parental responsibilities with the district. And that's when we know for sure you're going to have the most interaction with those parents, is when they're that young. So as they go through all the way up to high school, the parental involvement does decrease, right? So this is actually a really good point of entry for something like this, I think, to be proactive. So that's where our heads were at. And I hope that it's useful to you and can help make things better, because, the teachers are in the front lines, the parents are in the front lines, and tools are everything.
Yeah, no, I think it's a great idea, especially for those 3rd grade families transitioning into 4th grade next year, because it's not the same as Winslow.
Right.
Yeah, I was gonna say too, it's like a complete different world from my son in fourth grade now and my second grader. And if you had said this before I had a fourth grader at Sherman, I would have been like, what do you mean? No, no. But
Yeah.
I can see that difference. Is it possible if that were to like be the case, could we get someone even like iPads? Because if parents have kindergartners, they might not be interested, but like, is it something that we could help phones, iPads, like everything, like kind of wrap it all into one type of situation? Because I don't know, I don't want my kids to have a phone for a while, maybe 11, I don't know, you know.
Yeah.
But
one of the Tabitha, one of the things that, you know, we're, as a professional teacher and administrator for stuff that I do,
yeah,
we always look at not just do we train a session, but what can the parents walk away from being able to do? Because
yeah,
a lot of times what happens, we give this half an hour session and they walk out with some information, but they really can't do it. So it's more of an, we get someone in here, say you do this, some kind of plan,
yeah,
give them an orientation, and then they can get on their kids' phones and do it, right? Or they can get on the iPad and do it. So they walk away with some skills and they're like, holy mackerel, I'm ready for this. You know, they feel comfortable and confident. So
yeah.
food for
I
thought.
mean, even myself, I have like my two kids, you know, like I said, fourth and second grade, they have iPads and they have their school Chromebooks, which we try and only use for school things. I set my own parent, like I went through it. I've deleted YouTube times, I've done like multiple things, and they're still kind of being able to break through somehow, whether it's, I don't even know how. I'm like, how did you be able to do this? Like, I deleted this app twice. I put on these parental guidelines, like, you know, strict things. I have codes and this or that, and they're still able to find a way. So that, I mean, that's, you know, my issue with the younger kids anyway. And I know it's only going to get worse, but I'm hoping maybe someone could address those types of situations.
As my son always said, Dad, you can put these parental controls on, but I know how to get around you. And I'm going, and I'm pretty technically savvy.
Yeah,
but
same.
So knowing that, right? No, that's what our thinking is. Knowing how to go back in and reset things and make it harder for the kids is an asset to the parents. So it's a proactive approach that way. So, all right, I'll stop talking. I just think it's a really good thing. Technology's not going away. We all know computers are just going to get more crazy. And I love the fact that you guys are doing so much at this level. And this is just another way to think about how do we set up the district and the kids to be safe moving forward and get the parents involved in that way. So I'll stop talking. I'll just talk all day. I can't help it.
No, it's a good topic, something to definitely think about and look into. Because like I said, and I know Tabitha feels the same way. And my daughter says all the time, it's not, she misses Winslow. Sherman's not the same. The kids, you know, you think it's just fourth graders, fourth, fifth, sixth graders, but they're nasty. And like the things that they do and say, they all have their phones and they use them on the bus. And yeah, it's things you don't think that they can get into. You remove it, you block it, they find a way around it. So even if there's ways that parents can learn how to track or monitor, like still have those apps or whatever available, but the parents have can see what they've done. Like my kids have Messenger Kids, but it's linked to my phone and I can go into their accounts at any time and see the comments and that they have back and forth with their friends and stuff. Video calls, obviously, I don't think there's any way to monitor videoing, but it's definitely something to look into. And I think it would be a good use of the funds, depending on what other ideas Jeff has. But like you said, it could be something that we combine with other schools to present for the parents. Thank you. Thank you for that.
Dan had his hand up too.
Yes.
Yeah, so I just wanted to mention that they did have one of these seminars at Roth. I believe it was 4 years ago in the auditorium there. They had someone come in and a whole bunch of parents came and sat in the auditorium, and it was about an hour presentation, and he went through in detail. All of that's completely obsolete now. And I walked away from that with my head completely full, and I forgot half of it by the time I walked out the door, and I wasn't able to completely put it into use. So I definitely echo the idea of more of a workshop format, because that format, I'm sure that most other parents were in the same boat as me, where they said, okay, yeah, that's all very interesting information. I don't know how to actually put it into use.
And I think that's how a lot of people, I know I myself learned that way, more hands-on, and actually you walk me through it and show me what I need to do, and then it's a lot easier for me to do. Obviously, if it's spelled out line by line, but all devices are different. If it's an Apple product, if it's an Android product, so they're all different. But yeah, definitely a good topic. And it seems like it was obviously well received 4 years ago when they did it. So hopefully, like you said, it's all obsolete. It all changes so frequently. So we can definitely look into doing something like that. Okay. Heather, did you have anything for GPAC?
Nope, we meet in a couple weeks.
Okay. All right. And then I think we got, our last meeting, you haven't had a meeting since then, right?
Correct. It was early February, so I think we met after that.
Okay, perfect. All right, Dan, I know you have an update for budget.
Yeah, absolutely. So we did have a budget meeting last week, Monday, on the 28th of February, and there's a huge amount of information. So I'm going to try to go over this as quickly as possible. And please feel free to interrupt me if you have any questions about this. All right, so I'm going to start out with the base budget. The base budget is the budget this year translated from into next year's dollars. So trying to calculate out, if we keep everything exactly the same next year as we have this year, keep all of the education the same, all the programs the same, then how much would it cost based on inflation, based on increased costs for various things. And so this year, our budget is $141 million and change. The projection for next year, keeping everything exactly the same, is $150 million. So that's an increase of about $9 million, or 6.4%, which is a decently large increase, especially if you think in terms of the tax cap law, which allows us to increase by a maximum of approximately 2% each year our revenues. So 6.4% is pretty chunky. And a large portion of that is employee benefits. The employee benefits are dictated by contract or dictated by the state. So the district doesn't have an awful lot of control over that. Employee benefits are increasing by $2.3 million next year. Special education is increasing by $1.1 million next year. That's a combination of new students in the special education program coming into the district that weren't here in the past, but also because we were at home for a couple of years. They had let go some of the aides for special education, and they're slowly hiring back these aides. So they're expected to have a larger workforce next year than they do this year as well. And also transportation. Transportation is increasing by about $1 million, and you've probably heard that the salaries for transportation workers have increased. We also have increased requirements on transportation right now. The salaries have increased partly to keep the transportation workers that we have, partly to attract new transportation workers, partly to keep parity with other districts in the area who have also raised their wages. But also it's kind of driven by the minimum wage increases as well, because as minimum wage goes up, the apparent value of the wages of our transportation workers has changed. And so, there's all of those things factor into it. But the bottom line is those three are the major drivers of the increases next year. They contribute together, those three contribute $4 million of the $9 million. And a lot of it is also the fact that, as you know, inflation is pretty high right now. And so things such as oil cost increases, or gas cost increases, I should say, which will affect heating, which will affect our buses. All of these things are driving a large increase in cost next year. Now, that's not necessarily horrible. As we'll get to in revenue, I'll talk about how that's going to be offset by increased revenue. But first, let's talk a little bit about tax cap. As I said, tax cap is a 2% tax cap. That's the number that everybody remembers. It's actually more complicated than that because it's either 2% or inflation, whichever one happens to be higher. And while inflation works against us this year on our budget increase, it actually works for us on our tax cap because in the past multiple years, our ability to raise taxes has been limited by inflation because inflation is lower than 2%. So it's whichever one is lower. I think I just said whichever one's higher. That's wrong. Whichever one's lower. So if inflation is under 2%, then the inflation is going to limit how much we can increase taxes. And we won't even be able to get the full 2% tax cap increase. So since inflation is high, we can go up to that 2%. There's also a carryover from last year that we can utilize if we want to. That is, last year we did not increase taxes. We didn't want to be an extra burden on the community. We knew that there was a lot of financial hardship in our district. And so we didn't increase taxes last year. The state allows us to carry over a portion of the amount that we could have increased taxes and use that as an extra increase this year. It's not like money sitting there. This is saying we would still need to increase taxes, but it allows us to increase taxes by more than what we would normally be allowed to as a carryover. That's a $1.3 million carryover that we could use this year if we wanted to go above that. So with those two things together, plus growth in the community, because growth in our community actually goes above and beyond what we're allowed to increase our taxes by, we could increase our entire tax pool of what we collect by $3.9 million this year. That's what we could do, and that would be a 4.6% increase over last year. Now, the superintendent is not recommending that. I thought that you guys were going to discuss that at the school board meeting last night, Mr. Rivers. Was this discussed? It was. Okay. So what he told us at our meeting was he was planning on recommending a levy increase of about 2.4 million rather than the 3.9 million, which is about a 2.7% levy increase, or what most people pay attention to is the rate increase. It would be a 1.97% rate increase. That was going to be his recommendation for multiple reasons, one of which is that 1.97% is below that magic 2% number that everybody has in their head. Everybody thinks, oh, 2%. And if you go above that, then you start to get alarm bells going off in the community. It looks like the district is not being responsible, is the impression that a lot of people have. And so that is his recommendation, to increase taxes by the $2.4 million or 1.97%. Now, obviously, that's not going to get you $9 million. And, oh, by the way, I forgot to mention, since that's a base budget increase, the $9 million, there are actually multiple budget proposals that are being recommended for next year. New costs, new programs that total to about $1.1 million on top of that $9 million increase. So it's not a small amount of money. So where else can we get some of this money from? Well, guess what? We have a new governor, okay? This new governor is much friendlier to education than our old governor was. She has promised that she is going to give our district the full amount of money that we are owed by the state formulas. So state foundation aid is going to be fully funded this year. That is the expectation based on what we're seeing come out of Albany. And that amount is an extra $5.4 million over what we got last year. So that is huge. $5.4 million is going to get us another good chunk of the way towards that $10 million that we need. We also have a bunch of federal aid. The federal government has enacted multiple COVID programs to give schools, districts extra funding. For our district, that's a little bit over $12 million across the next 3 years. There's actually, like I said, multiple programs, and they have staggered expiration dates. And so the district will have to kind of manage how that money is used over the next 3 years. The final amount of money, as of right now, has an expiration in September of 2024, which means it'll just barely make it into the 24-25 school year. So they can use some of that money in 24-25 as well, which is where I'm getting the 3 years from. It's across the next 3 school years. And so they've said, okay, with 12 million over 3 years, we can use $4.1 million of that federal money next year. But there are some caveats to this. Caveat number one is that $4.1 million is earmarked for certain things. It can't just be used for the general budget. The federal government has said you have to use it for these things, including a lot of it is that you should be using it for new programs, new services related to helping students with the educational gap that has happened because of COVID, related to helping students emotionally with the problems that they have coping with COVID and what's come out of that. Programs related to what we're seeing, behavioral issues that are being seen everywhere. We're seeing behavioral issues that a lot of it is related to the fact that there's educational gap, related to the fact that the students have been out of school for so long, related to the fact that there are emotional needs. So all of these things are a big part of what the federal government is giving us the money for. We talked a decent amount about trying to use that money for non-renewing programs, because that money, as I said, has an expiration date. It's over the next 3 years. And so if we use that money in a way that will need to be funded beyond that 3 years, then we will hit what is being called a fiscal cliff. That fiscal cliff is we will have $4 million next year from the federal government, $4 million in 2 years, $4 million in 3 years, but in 4 years, that money is going to disappear. And we don't want to be in a situation where we are funding programs that we want to maintain, but we no longer have the money to do it. Unfortunately, because of the needs of our district and also because of the purpose of that money from the federal government, we are actually going to use that money for programs that will continue, for programs that are, we're going to use it for people. We're going to hire people. That's the plan. So the plan is to use that money for personnel, tutors, and people to help out with that learning gap, emotional support, counselors, and also to hire aides, extra aides for schools that need it. We're going to use it to fund extra AIS programs. Also use it to fund what they're calling youth. I don't have it written down here. Bottom line is youth assistance. That's what it is. Youth assistance, people to help out with monitoring hallways, people to help out with the behavioral issues that we're seeing, and especially in the upper grades. So yes, there is this fiscal cliff that is going to be coming because we're going to hire people, and in 4 years, we're going to have to make a decision. Do we want to let some of these people go? Do we want to shrink other programs, or will we be able to find the money somewhere else to keep these programs going? So how are we going to offset that fiscal cliff? How are we going to try to avoid that problem? Well, as I said, the financial aid can't be used to offset the base budget increase. So we do need to raise taxes. We need to raise taxes for that. But also we want to raise taxes so that as we come closer to that 4-year drop in funds, we'll be increasing the amount of money that we're taking in. If we keep our taxes flat, there might be a perception from the community that all this money is coming in and we're also raising taxes as well. Why do we have all this extra influx of money from the state, from the federal government, and we're raising taxes? Well, the reason is because we want to make sure that we're keeping our income up to the point where that drop off in 4 years will not be so severe. We don't want to all of a sudden lose that amount of money and not be able to make it up in some other way. And since we have that 2% limit, raising taxes every year by the amount that we feel is responsible will help with that. We also are going to delay the usage of that carryover. I said that there was a 1.3 million carryover from last year. We are not going to take that this year. Apparently that can be carried over kind of indefinitely is my impression. So yes, Doug, Mr. Rivers, do you?
I just clarity on the carryover. The carryover, and it's complicated. So Dan, great job, but it's not. I don't want to go say what you're saying is wrong. I just want to clarify. The carryover has to be used the year after it's implemented.
But that is not what I was told at the meeting. Okay, go on.
It's okay. I know there's been a lot of discussions. You can go online and look this up. If you go to the state comptroller, I actually called them, had a conversation with them to clarify. But what can be done is we can do a carryover every year.
Okay.
So you see how easily it could. That's where I think the confusion is just understanding that it's not that 1.3 that we're carrying over and then another 1.3 the next year. It's either going to be a 1.5% or the difference between the 2 years. But what's more important is here's the big picture. All it does is allow us to carry over tax collection without having to have a supermajority when you vote on it.
Right.
That's it. So
yes.
The key is it still could pass, but it allows for a 50+1 vote. So anyway, thanks, Dan. You're doing amazing, by the way. I have to say that you got a great.
So that's another strategy for 4 years. What are we going to do? And also, next year the plan is we're going to be putting $1.8 million back into our reserve funds for years now. I think it's probably been 9 years in a row. I think we've been taking money out every year. Every single year we've been taking money out of those reserve funds. Now we're in a position where we actually can put a little bit of money back into that, try to restock those reserve funds so that later on when we no longer have this federal money to help us out, we can have a little bit more of a cushion there. And hopefully at that point we can reassess and be able to slowly make changes that we need to. We don't have to immediately drop any programs that we might have picked up over that time. So I'm going to talk very briefly about the budget proposals. One of the budget proposals I already mentioned was extra counselors, youth assistants across various grades. There was talk about GPS. Mr. Rivers, I've heard that the GPS in buses might not happen next year. Is that true?
They're working on trying to figure out if they can do it. It might not. I don't think it's going to happen next year, but maybe after that.
Okay, so the idea is they want to put GPSs in the buses. This will, first off, it'll help the bus drivers because the bus drivers are, they're stressed and they are having difficulties, especially with various students going to different people's houses on different days or being picked up by parents today. And so the changes in their routes, it is complicated, and having a GPS on the bus more than not like a simple GPS like you would have in your phone, but a little more complicated, that would be able to show them their route changes dynamically. But also these GPSs would be set up so that as a parent or sometimes as an older child, you could register your phone so that the GPS will inform you when your bus is pretty close to the stop, so maybe about 5 minutes away. Hey, go on out. It's time for you to wait for the bus. It's on its way. They're hoping that this would make it less frustrating for the drivers because hopefully people will be ready when the bus arrives. And also, kids don't have to be sitting out in the cold waiting, or often buses will be sitting at someone's house beeping, waiting for people to come out because they're not ready because the bus schedule varies. I understand. Sometimes they're here early, sometimes they're here late. And so, if you have that 5-minute warning, they're hoping that will make the entire thing go more smoothly. And the last one is it would affect this school. They're hoping to reduce the average primary class size back down to 15, primary being the K through 3 grades. It was relatively recently increased to an average class size of 16, and they want to bump that back down to 15. So that is all that I had. Like I said, that's a huge amount of information. I went through it super quickly. Does anyone have any questions?
I was amazing. I want all of you to know what he just did was amazing.
I love listening to it. I think it's all very interesting. I try to like take notes, but then I can't write as that fast. But I never do anything with my notes. So, but it's all very interesting. What did you say with the three big major drivers for the increase next year? What was the special ed going up?
Okay, so special ed, there's a couple pieces to it. Number one is we're just getting more special education students, and that's been happening multiple years in a row now, and they've tried to figure out what's going on with it, and we're not entirely sure. Part of it is that Russian Henrietta does have a very good special education program, and that word's getting out, and we do think that there are some families who are moving into this area because of that, because they have special education needs and they know that we have a good program. But another part of it is simply that when the students were all at home during COVID, they let the aides go. You know, the teachers were still here. We were still teaching, but we didn't need aides because all the kids were at home. And so it's taken time to hire back the aides. So we don't have a full fleet of aides this year. We're understaffed in the aide department this year, but the expectation is that we'll have more next year. And so that's increased cost as well.
Yeah. Did I guess I just meant like the total. I think you said it was like 1 point.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, 1.1 million.
1.1. Okay.
Yep.
Thank you. I just missed that part. Yeah, I totally get that. Did anybody else have any other questions for Dan? No. Dan, thank you.
I just put a link in the chat. That's my own notes that I'm talking from. So if you want to take a look at that at some point as well, you can have that. There.
Perfect. Thank you.
For my head, not yours, but at least there's some of the information there.
The shy guy has to jump on. Okay. Mr. Pollard, I skipped you. Do you have a principal's report?
Sure. Yeah, I was going to talk. We did have the parent partnership meeting where we went over the survey results. So we had good participation. We had a few people there from Winslow, a few parents, and I think the the big takeaways were that we definitely need to continue to work on the social emotional skills of kids and identifying and supporting and offering assistance to families. And also just continuing to work on the ongoing communication. We have a lot, teachers communicate in different ways. I think you see that throughout the grades. You see it if you have multiple kids. So those are just some things that we need to continue to work on at Winslow and really across the district, some pretty common, needs there. We had our PARP week, the book fair, hopefully that went well. I know, for you guys, I think our PARP events seem to go pretty well in the building. I know we didn't have our big PARP night, so hopefully next year we can get back to that. The other big things that'll be coming up are for our third graders, the state test. They're going to be taking the ELA on April 5th and then math on May 3rd. They're all computer-based this year. It'll be the first year for the math computer-based, but we've been preparing the students through our MAPS assessment and just their unit assessments, taking those online. And the other thing is, I think for April, I was hoping that we would be able to have that PTO meeting here at Winslow. So I don't think there's anything right now preventing that from happening. I don't think we're going to get 100 million people. So I think if we have our little group here, for a meeting, doing it in person would be a nice change. So Heather and I will get back to people on that for sure, but just be on the lookout for that. Other than that, I don't know if people have any questions for me.
Do we see future events at the school happening at all this year?
Future indoor events?
I haven't gotten
indoor events, I guess. So yeah, sorry.
I haven't gotten the go ahead for any big indoor events yet. And we really don't have any plan, but I do think that like our fall picnic or the picnic at the end of the year that we wanted to have, I think we'll be able to do that. But really at this point, we've kind of already gone through like our PARP night, culture fair, some of those events that we would do in the building.
Yeah.
But in terms of like you get like parents coming in and helping with like teacher appreciation, those type of things, I don't think there'll be any problem with that type of stuff.
Okay. But we're still on for the end of the year
Yeah.
event. Okay.
Yeah, I think we should start to plan for that. I think that especially with it being outdoors, I think we'll be good to go.
Yeah. Okay. Just a quick Snapchat. I don't have the final numbers from the book fair, but probably like we made $900 off of it, which again is it's more for the students. This time around, we ended up a lot of people don't bring in money for sales tax, so they have all this like, oh, this is what I want. They have their wish list, and they make their purchases, and we just like decide to like, if you don't have the sales tax, get your books, get what you want. A couple kids had like $1 or $2 and wanted a $4 book. We're like, you know, like we kind of let it go, and because it is for the students. Like I think we do that more just for students to have fun and not to like really make any type of profit unless we're doing like an evening night, which we haven't been able to do now. So I think it went really well this time. And we had a lot of great parent volunteers that were able to like, they were helping a kid, and then the kid would get upset if they couldn't find their book. And they're like, oh, if you want to find this book. And then like 5 different parents paid a couple extra dollars just for this kid to have their book, which I thought was really nice. And going into the future, I made a lot of notes about like, we need more of those like diaries locked up and a lot of like the fluffy kind of things for elementary. So I think, you know, in the fall, if we decide, you know, plan on doing it again, it'll be better because gosh, heartbroken kindergartners are like the worst thing, crying. I can't find my this. I can't find that. I don't want, you know, it was really hard. So, but we made it work, and everyone left with a smile on their face. So
it's always hard helping them with their wish list when their wish list is like fuzzy dog thing or something like dog book or whatever. And there's so many options, and yeah, it's hard to find them.
And then I felt bad for the second graders because they're the last ones in, and there's nothing left that they want because it's all, you know, kind of pawed through. So now that we have an idea of what kids actually want, we can, you know, reach out to Scholastic and say like, this is what we need more of, like double this, triple this, you know, that kind of thing. But all the parents were awesome, and it went well. So
good. Yeah, I think you had said maybe about 4,200 in sales. So I think that's pretty good.
Yeah, we only make like 25%. So in the fall, in November, we made $904.52. And our profit looks to be about $1,050, but this time, like I said, we paid a lot of sales tax and that kind of thing. So we're probably looking about another $900. Around $900 in total. So I don't have the numbers, it's close, but yeah. But again, like if we could figure out a way for it not even to be like as much as a profit, but just more fun for kids, and even have like maybe free books next time. I don't know, a lot of ideas, but anyway, for another time. It went well, and there were tears, a lot of tears shed, but no one left super upset. So
well, thank you and Brittany and all the volunteers for all your work on that. Emma, what are you doing? Oh my gosh, I can't even see you because you're blurry. Okay. So PTO wise, we have a couple of things we're going to be doing, a little surprise for next week for students and staff. No. Shush. And then we're going to start planning staff appreciation and the end of year picnic. And again, maybe some little fun things here and there for the students. So still trying to figure out, you know, just little things to do that we can, you know, just brighten the kids' days or whatever and have a little bit of fun. Jeff, do you know, has there been any talk of any fun day at the end of the year? Field day, fun day, whatever we call it.
We haven't talked about it yet, but I do believe we'll be able to do something, because of, did we put it on the calendar? I'm trying to remember here. I'm looking right now.
I can't remember if it's on the calendar. I just didn't know.
Looks like we didn't put it on the calendar, but I do think we'll be able to do something.
Something of some sort.
We'll have to figure out, like, definitely something for the kids. We'll have to figure out what level of parent, can come and watch and that type of thing. So those will, but I do think that we'll have something going on for the kids. It was more than last year.
Yeah. Okay. That's good. I already mentioned the music stuff. I feel like I had something else to talk about, but I can't think of it right now. So does anybody have any questions for us? Any ideas? Anything you'd like to see? I believe we only have 2 meetings left because I think we do April and May and we don't do June, if I remember correctly.
Correct. Yep. And I think we'll probably have like the budget presentation, and I can't remember if it's April or it might be April, the next one.
Okay. All right. If anybody hears of anyone wanting to be involved, wanting to be part of the board, we would love to get somebody on at least for co-treasurer for next year to kind of learn the ropes, because it'll be Tabitha's last year with us. Very, very sad. So if you hear of anybody talking, just keep your ears open. Feel free to send them our way or give us their name and we can contact them. Treasurer is a huge position, plus she does way more beyond just books and spending money. But there's that, and I think that's about it. So
I can add that to my e-news too, just a little. Usually I don't get any hits on it, but
I know.
I'll throw it out there.
I know it's hard. What about Heather Lancet? Do you have any?
Do you want?
I'm not no pressure. Obviously, there's no one here into like the treasurer.
Yeah, I can. If you don't get any hits from anybody else, I can, because DPAC, Scott, Kara's husband, Scott, comes to DPAC sometimes. He doesn't. I don't think he's been to a PTO meeting. No. So I can always talk to him, and if he's interested in being on DPAC next year, and if Tabitha, if you want me to work with you, I can let him know that maybe he takes over some of the PTO stuff in terms of like, liaisoning back and forth. So if you don't get any interest, because I am I'll be at Winslow another 4 years.
You're gonna be there for a while. Yeah. For a while. So it's a good. Yeah, it's easy. It is. It's really not. It's not. And I ordered like a
got your volunteer, by the way. I think you just got it.
I got to put personal pressure on people as best I can. So
I know, right?
But with an audience too.
Yes.
Yeah. Sorry.
But no, I definitely can
sometimes.
I know. But we'll definitely keep looking. Heather, if you're interested, it's all yours. But
I can definitely. Unless you guys have somebody who is like, I really want to do it, then they can. But no, I can do it. It's no problem.
Nice.
Thank you.
All right. Yes, we appreciate all the parent support and volunteers we get for any little thing. So I guess that's about it. My kiddos are getting ready for bed. So yeah, thank you everybody for joining us, and we will hopefully see you